Hi, everybody. It has been a few minutes since I did one of these interviews. And I know I told some of you I was going to do them podcast, just do vocal, but it's just so much fun to see people's faces. And I think especially with this whole COVID thing popping up again, we really need to see each other. And I want to tell you that today I am talking to one of my favorite people. Her name is Becky Zavrel, and she is actually named after one of my photo booths because she just smiles all the time. I don't think I've ever seen this person when she wasn't just grinning from ear to ear. So I'm going to let Becky introduce herself to you, tell her a little bit about herself, and then just herself and her family and what she's doing. And then we'll kind of go down our list. So, hey there. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much, Coral. I love this. Is kind of my first podcast, so I'm so excited to be on yours.
Good.
My name is Becky. I'm born and raised here in Fairbanks. I'm a school teacher by trade, and this year I'm interim principal at Denali Elementary, where I've taught the last 20 years. So this is home to me. But normally I'm a kindergarten teacher, and so I love my little guys. I have 3 daughters. I married my high school sweetheart so I was at Lathrop, he was at Monroe, and we have 3 girls together, and they are twin girls in junior high right now. And our oldest, Maggie, is a junior in high school. So it's kind of weird having kids out of my elementary school. This is the first year that nobody's with me every day for school. So I'm trying to learn how this new adulthood phase is working when the kids are actually like self-sufficient a little bit. It's a little odd.
Yeah. But, well, this is like your empty nest at work. Maybe it's kind of preparing you for the new empty nest down the road,
So many years I would be the teacher toting bags in and kids following me, like the Pied Piper coming in. And now I'm coming in by myself and I feel like one of those old teachers. So it's a little disconcerting to me that I'm the old one now that doesn't have kids anymore here.
Well, you're not old. You're vintage. Yeah. Well, when you said you're a kindergarten teacher for that many years, I always used to say there's a special place in heaven for kindergarten teachers because
I'd say the same about a junior high teacher. I think junior high would scare me to death. Like 5-year-olds, anything goes with a 5-year-old. If you like make it, like sell it, like in a song or something, or show them a puppet, then you're fine. Junior high, I would be lost.
Yeah. It's funny because when I was working on my degree in education, somebody said, if you ever taught in public school, what grade did you want to teach? And I said, junior high. And people are just like, are you crazy? And I'm like, no, I really like that age. But,
oh my goodness. Yeah, crazy.
But I never pursued that. I went a different direction. But anyway, I asked Becky to join me for a couple of different reasons. But one is, when I started this whole podcast, it was about kind of presenting Alaskan women and kind of letting people see how tenacious and sort of we're just a little quirky. And people don't quite get us sometimes because there's this misconception of what we are and who we are. And so that's where I came up with the name Grit and Grins, because it's like, I think that sort of embodies who we are and the things that are and aren't important to us. And I've had a broad cross section of people that I've interviewed. You're number 15, and people that just have lots of different fun things they like to do that were surprising for Alaskans. So the question I ask is, who's your grit giver and who's your grin giver?
Somebody that gives me grit?
Yeah. That gave you grit or gives you grit or keeps you gritty or, yeah.
I would have to say my parents. So I'm lucky enough that my parents are still here. They live 2 miles away from me. I get to see them all the time. And I am the middle girl of 3. I have 2 brothers, one older, one younger. So I think being the middle child makes you gritty already, right? And then I was the only girl. So then I was kind of, a little bit maybe pampered that way. I kind of got what I needed, from dad because I'm the only girl. But I would say my parents definitely gave me grit. when I was 12, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin. So I was in junior high, just leaving Pearl Creek, about to go into Tanana, and was diagnosed with cancer. And I think that is, I mean, it obviously it shaped a lot of who I am and what I do in my life. But that was for my parents now looking back, as I'm a mom, I can remember parts of it when I was 12 that I know they were going through the darkest time in their life. And to me, I was just mad that I wasn't at school. I was missing teenage things. I was missing friends. But that whole experience and what they showed me was true grit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the grinning. So who gives me grins? Definitely my girls and my husband Adam give me grins every day. They are the coolest people to be around for me. And then just coming to school. Anytime I'm having a bad day, I walk back down to the kindergarten rooms, and that you cannot help it because they're so excited to show you they have a loose tooth or that they skinned their knee or whatever happened that day. So I really have the best job in the world that I get to be around kids, and that gives me grins every day.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's because you're a master educator. You are, I mean, I've lived in this community over 25 years. And I think the first time I really was introduced to you was years and years ago when I worked at the Large Animal Research Station. I think you were one of the kindergarten teachers that brought your kindergarten kids out.
We did to the muskox farm. We did, yeah.
Do you remember that crazy game we played with the running around the muskox and the caribou game? And
yes, that's fun.
Yeah, so I remember because some of the teachers I would start that with the kids, and how we played, guys, is I asked him, we taught him a little bit about caribou and a little bit about muskox. And, caribou, when they get frightened, they run in all sorts of different directions. And that's how they keep the wolves from, attacking them, because it's just utter chaos. And the muskox form a circle and the babies sit in the inside. And so it was always funny to me when we did kindergarten kids, because they didn't really like the muskox part of it. They just loved running around.
Yeah. You give them a field, and that's the best field trip you can do.
Yeah. They were like, what? And I loved it. I loved it. The scientists freaked out a little bit sometimes. They're like, oh, the kids are running around. And I'm like, yeah, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. But
until someone gets trampled. Then
they're not. They would be fine. But now we talked a little bit. She said that Becky said she does like reality TV, and that's what I started this. It was because they people that I talked to had this misconception that was what Alaskan women were like. But you know what? You are the first one that I have talked to that says, I do like reality TV, and I do watch
it. It's my guilty pleasure. I love, and my husband will be always like, why are you watching that? I mean, I love the Teen Moms of MTV. I love those shows. I love all of the Real Housewives. I watch all of those. It's crazy how many of those I can watch. And everybody says, no, why, what do you find in that? I'm like, it's entertaining. I am the person that do you ever drive by people's houses, and if they're it's dark out and their lights are on, I just want to peer in. I want to know what's going on in that family. What are they doing in there? So I guess reality TV kind of gives me that glimpse into someone else's life that, and then I can watch Hoarders and feel great about my cleaning skills. You can just pick and choose. All these reality TV shows will make you think I don't know. It makes you feel better about where you're living. So,
well, and I'm laughing because remember there's a guy in Fairbanks who
I've watched it. Yeah,
because he was on it and I drive by that house.
I do too.
Yeah, you and I she grew up just down the road from where my house and office is, and there's this guy, and it's incredible. But I think because some people aren't like that, but I think Alaskans are, and my husband and I have talked about it, and he thinks it's a rural mentality, that people in rural areas are very much like, well, we better not throw that away. And
saving it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so
And
it's
Alaskans, right? And the time of like how old you are, maybe like I mean, I remember my grandma would save paper towels, like wring them out and then save them. So if you lived through the depression, maybe or everything gets saved a little bit more, and we are just throwing things away more and more. But yeah,
do you
it's
do
interesting.
you
But yeah,
do you
reality TV, I can
yeah.
sit and watch other people's lives. I love it.
Did you
Guilty
have an
pleasure.
Alaskan one that you liked? Did you have an Alaskan one you
I've
liked?
watched several of them. The gold, some of them are just like you watch those and the gold, all those people, and you're like, oh, come on, this is not how Alaskans behave. But I mean, they're entertaining, right? All the different families, and then the ones that are all over the bush, and what they do every time to survive. And I always wonder about like the cameraman. Like, what is he thinking when he's out there with these people in the middle of nowhere? He has to be kind of just saying, this lady is crazy. But anyway,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So she mentioned a little bit about that what she's working today. Just tell us a little bit about what happened. So you became the principal. Kind of you got voluntold.
yeah. Well, I was asked, yeah. So this our administrator moved to a different building, and so they post the position. It takes them like a 6-month hiring thing. They post and they want community input and they want a big interview process. So they didn't have the time for that right now. So I got asked in July, would I step in? And I have my administrative certificate. I have had it for like 16 years. I've always thought I wanted to be a principal, but the classroom is hard to leave. So I just have never pulled the trigger on that. And the kids were always little. So this year it kind of was everything came in line. The girls are older now. They're not here at school with me, so they're not in my classroom all the time. I want to try it out, but the nice thing about the interim year is if I don't find it's for me, then I can go back to the classroom. And so it's kind of just a fun get to see, a glimpse in the life of a elementary school principal, and see if that's what I want to do when I grow up, or if I just want to be back with the 5-year-olds. So we'll see.
And COVID is testing. I mean, this isn't an easy thing to walk into. So good for you. I mean,
Mhm.
that's courageous, my friend. I mean,
Yeah, every
really
day,
is.
see, I just seem to be like using my brain a lot more and like just everyday problem solving. Like, gosh, I've never thought of that one. Let's figure out that. So, but it definitely is taxing on all of the parents and the teachers and the kids, with every day, wearing our masks, trying to keep the schools open, trying to figure out how to, if they do quarantine, how to get their homework to them, and just staying positive, right? And working together. Like that's the biggest thing I think, that we're just trying to have grace with each other and the kids. It's been a long time since these kids were in full day school, and I think quarantine kind of, you know, changed everybody's minds a little bit. Like we just have to learn to be in society again. Like how do you interact with people again? How do you talk to people? How do you show kindness and respect? It's so we're just kind of starting back over with all those lessons. But I am a firm believer that everything you need to know in life you learned in kindergarten, and we're like reteaching that. So just be kind and share and listen to each other, and yeah.
Kind of,
So, but it's been
you,
hard.
you kind of, it was too bad because you kind of blurred right then. So did you say everything you need to learn, you learned in kindergarten? Is that what
Yeah,
you said?
I'm a believer that everything you need to learn in life, yeah, you learn in kindergarten. Share, be nice, eat your cookies with milk, take a nap,
Yeah.
all those things that we just have to like, just kind of step back and just remember how it is to be with people again. It's
Mhm.
strange. I know that sounds strange, but I think everybody's been in their bubble long enough to kind of forget how to behave with others again.
Yeah, I mean, I've always, for the last 13 years, I've worked in a home office,
Mhm.
and I always made myself go out into the community, go to the meetings, go places, meet people, have coffee. And yeah, right now it's like I really want to do it
Yeah.
again, but then there's a piece of me like, I asked 2 or 3 people this week, well, do you want to meet for coffee? We can always just wear our masks. And oh no, I don't want to. And then you just, a piece of you is sort of like, okay. You don't want to take it personally, but a little piece of you goes, "Ooh, that didn't feel good,"
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so just last weekend, or was it the weekend before? Becky runs she's the big volunteer that makes everything happen for the Strides Against Breast Cancer, making strides against breast cancer.
Yeah.
And so it was fun to be there because we did it virtually last year, which really wasn't fun.
No. Yeah, it was, I think the second walk in Fairbanks this summer that was in person, and none of them were in person last year. And I have to say, I mean, I've been involved with the American Cancer Society for many years with Relay and Making Strides Coral, and you have always been a champion of us and people and shining a light on others. And just like you saying, can I be there? Can we take part in Strides? Always just makes my heart feel so good, because everyone loves the photo booth, right? Everyone loves to smile, and you bring that out in people. And so
Oh,
it's just
thank
always
you.
so nice to have you there. But it
Oh, I
was
wouldn't,
so
I
nice to
wouldn't,
be.
I wouldn't do it if you weren't nice to me, though. You,
I know, yeah, I know. But I mean, isn't it true? Like, it brings something, the fact that people get to be back together, they get to put on their silly gear, they got to pose for a picture, was just kind of symbolic of the whole thing. And we did it on 9/11, which again was the 20th year anniversary of 9/11 for us this year. And so I was a little bit worried, about the uh, heaviness of that day too.
yeah.
But gosh, I was so happy to be walking down there, and the Sweet Adelines are singing, and it was such a beautiful fall day, and people are just feeling good about helping others again, and being out and doing something outside in public. That, to me, it was, not as big as we've had it in the past, but just as the first one in 2 years to come back in person, I couldn't have been happier. It was great.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and for me, it was very, my sister passed away the end of June, and she was a big runner. And she didn't have breast cancer. She had another kind of cancer. But I made a pact with myself that I was going to run at least one 5K. And it wasn't exactly one 5K, but I got kind of lost.
You did a couple laps.
I did 2 laps. So, it was like, it wasn't because I meant to. It was like I forgot to turn, and then I went around.
Oh, I thought, like, Coral's going again. There she goes, you guys.
But so it was good. And it brings to light how lucky we are to be able to even, the fact that there's so many people that can't do things right now because of either where they live or being quarantined or being sick. And that was the hardest thing for my sister, is not to be able to get out and be with her friends. And
Yeah.
so that was rough. So I'm going to turn a corner here, kind of on a lighter start. So I always ask the people, what's your crazy Alaska story? And I have to giggle because we talked about my daughter a little bit before because my daughter's between two brothers. So if you want to respond the same way she did, that's fine.
Pain. That's right.
Yeah.
She knows my pain. Gosh, a funny Alaskan story. I guess, so we have a cabin up the Salter River, which is just where my heart feels great. Like, it's 30 miles up, so it takes an hour-long boat ride, and we went there always as kids, and then we've done some, fixing up and then make a new bunkhouse, and then my girls and my brother's kids, we all go out there together too. But it's 30 miles up, it's an hour up, and there's no cell service. That's a win, right? Nobody's on technology. We play Monopoly for hours. How many marshmallows can you eat? So to me, I love going up there and bringing the girls up there where it's a little bit of just quiet time. But I do remember when we were young, we live at the cabin's on a slough. So if there's not enough rain, it's very, very shallow and you can get stuck really easily. And my mom was teaching. I'm a third generation teacher, so my mom was teaching at Weller at the time. So this is kind of a funny Alaskan story that really didn't involve me, but I have a lot of Alaskan fun memories up the Salcha. But they were going up, and it was just the two of them. It was a September weekend. The teenage kids were all busy, so the two of them were going to go up, my mom and dad. And he hit tree that was partially out, and the boat kind of went up and she plopped out into the water. Both the coolers going and stuff. But what was, I mean, so she's in the water, she's freezing cold, she's, just upset. But what was even worse was her Weller school keys had been thrown out of her purse and were at the bottom of the Salcha River. And she was mortified to have to call her principal and say, we need to rekey the entire building because my husband hit the tree. We're in the water floating around. So somewhere in the Salcha River, there are keys to Weller about 25, 30 years ago that, could be out there. But I mean, like everything outside in the Salcha up at the cabin, that is like the best memories ever, getting stuck in the outhouse or, the flood and, when the water goes over the edge that you're there. Those are my best Alaska memories, I guess.
Yeah. So, everybody that's listening to this that isn't from Alaska is laughing. They're like, she got stuck in an outhouse?
Well, you never know what happens in the outhouse stays in the outhouse. I went to school at Washington State, and I had a girlfriend who came up with me for one summer. She came up to see Alaska, and she had never been in an outhouse, which to me by college was crazy. Like, how could you never be in an outhouse? And we took her rafting in Denali, and she went into one of the porta potties and came running out, holding up her trousers and said, somebody hasn't flushed. And I was like, whoa, not one person. There's a lot of people that have not flushed. Like, if you thought that was one person, we're in trouble. But and then we pitched a tent at Denali, and she'd never been in a tent before. So it was always, and then a couple of my girlfriends, and again, I went to Washington State, so it's not like it was very far. Washington is very close. But one of them made the comment that she thought Alaska was in the box by Hawaii, and that somehow, like, when you must have driven over, that box really was some sort of a weather barrier because Hawaii was warm and Alaska. And I'm like, well, what do you mean we're in a box by Hawaii? Why would we be down there?
College and you don't know this? I know. Man.
This is why, I know. Well,
that was one of the things, that the next question, what's the biggest misconception about Alaska? And I'm laughing because one of the gals that I talked to, she said that her big thing was that her mom made her promise when she moved to, or her mom said that she made her kids promise that when she moved to the lower 48, that they made sure that their fifth graders that she taught in Ohio or whatever, at least knew that Alaska and Hawaii weren't out here, and
Who would think that? I was so shocked by that. I was like, oh my goodness, are you kidding me? Yeah.
Yeah. So you think that's the biggest misconception, or do you think people have other weird misconceptions about us?
What's also strange is when I was at school that people would think I talked with an accent, which I've heard other people say that Alaskans have some sort of a different dialect. I don't hear it or whatever, but I thought that was kind of strange. And I think, I worked for Princess Tours for 4 years all through college. So I was the tourist passenger service representative when the tourists came up. So the misconceptions
I can see that.
I loved it. But, they wanted to know why it was, you would amaze. Tourists were so upset that it was so light in the summertime. That they couldn't understand why it was so light. And I thought, well, that's So I just think, and then the darkness and the plugging in the cars. No one understands why we have so many outlets around, and it's not because we're really advanced and we have electric cars. It's because we actually have to warm them up. But yeah, lots of little things that you don't think about until you talk to somebody, and then you're like, what do you mean?
Yeah. Well, it's funny about the accent because my kids say it too. And it's, and I just watched a program yesterday. It was on a podcast about dialects. And this guy he started on the East Coast and he went all the way across the United States and talked about all the different dialects and where they came from and whatever. And the thing that he said is that Alaskans have a weird kind of Minnesota Canadian strangeness, and it is only white Alaskans that have been here for several generations.
Isn't that strange?
Yeah.
That is interesting that he actually confirmed that, because I would have never thought that was true, but people would say it always to me that that I had a little bit of a thing. I'm like,
It's like that Canadian Minnesota, like we said the O's and the A's
yeah.
and he said it was, but this guy said it was because of the settling of so many of the people from like Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, those places came up here, whether it was in the Mat-Su Valley, because they made fun of Sarah Palin
Yeah.
when she got on the news that she had this, and we say, yeah,
I can hear it in her. You
yeah,
can hear it in some people a little bit more. Yeah.
yeah. There's certain, and when we just say yeah, you
Yeah.
and I both say
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. Canadian. Yeah.
It's the Canadian thing. I've had people say, "Are you from Canada?" No. What are you talking about? But yeah. So it's just one of those things that. So that's interesting. You're the first person that I've talked to that's brought that out, and I think the plugging in the cars. So, FYI, guys, we plug in our cars because our cars have heaters under different parts of the engine, and with cold in, especially here in Fairbanks, it's super cold in the winter, and it keeps our cars from freezing so that they'll start in the morning. They don't even have plugs in other places in Alaska.
Yeah.
You go down to Anchorage and not everybody has plugs.
Yeah.
But it doesn't get 50 below in Anchorage.
Yeah.
Very often.
And it's funny because one of my friends recently bought a car from somebody that must have driven it up. And she bought the car and had owned it for a while, and then noticed that there was no plug, and I'm like, well, you got to go get it winterized. But we just assume that every car comes with a plug. Why doesn't it come with a plug? Like, they're not made like that? That's crazy.
Yeah, why not? Yeah. So you told me a little bit about, so how did your parents get here? Or your grandparents?
They were born and raised. Yeah, they were both born and raised. My mom's family lived in, my grandpa was born in Juneau, and my so he lived there, and so they've been here for 3 generations and came up to Fairbanks through UAF. But Gold brought my dad's family also, same with yours, brought them north and stuff. So but my parents were both born and raised in Fairbanks too, and this is home, right?
Yeah.
We go away for college, but home is where the heart is.
Yeah. I went away for college too. Went to Colorado. Yep. And so have you ever thought about leaving? Like when you retire?
Not if my family's all here. I just, we still do Sunday night dinners at my mom's house with all the grandkids, and the cousins are all very close. And so I just can't even imagine being anywhere else. I loved going away to college. I thought that was kind of fun, and it was a glimpse, right? But it was not where I wanted to be all the time. So if my family was all still here, there was nowhere else I'd want to be.
Yeah, and I think that's why some people like I'm at the age that a lot of my friends have left.
Yeah.
It's because their kids went out to school, and then they didn't come back. And so they're here, and their grandkids are outside. So and again, I'm going to repeat this. If you're from the lower 48 or anywhere else watching this, when we say outside, we don't mean outside of our house. We mean outside in the lower 48, which is the other places except Hawaii where we vacation. So we don't include them.
That's in the box next to us.
Yeah, it's in the box next to us. A short airplane ride. So one of the things I have to laugh because you talked about all the different things that we experience as Alaskans. So one of the things I ask people is when you're filling out an order online, because we all shop online, which that's one of the things COVID kind of locked us into, and yet I don't really like Amazon. I don't want to support that guy, but I kind of have to at this point. But when it says free shipping, other than probably Amazon Prime, what does that mean to you? What experiences have you had with free shipping?
Oh man, isn't that crazy? Like in fact, I was just looking at somebody wanted some math manipulatives for one of their math lessons, and they found it online. And so it was like $70 was all of the math things, and it was $121 to ship to Alaska. And I just wrote back the teacher, and I'm like, I can't do that. There is no way we can justify justify $120 of shipping. That's just crazy. That's why Amazon Prime is my favorite for that reason. Free shipping would be zero, but you never find that. It's very hard to find zero shipping costs.
And even Amazon Prime, sometimes
Yeah.
you have it and it's not free. People don't
Yeah.
realize. I love it when it's like on eBay, you try to buy something and they'll ship to every other country in the world except Alaska, Hawaii, and Puerto Rico.
Yeah,
And you're like, okay,
exactly.
I'll ship to Turkey, but I won't ship to Alaska.
I know, or it'll say like only international, only, within the United States. Well, we're still within the United States,
Yeah.
but it's, yeah.
For quite some time now, actually.
Yeah.
So, do you like fish?
Yes, I love fish. My husband Adam goes to Chitina with my brothers and my dad every year. So they dip net and get lots of salmon. I love salmon, love fish, love scallops and shrimp, seafood, halibut, love that all.
Yeah. One of the questions, if people say they don't like fish, I always say, how do you deal with the ridicule in this state if you don't like fish?
No, I'm on the good side. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like
and then
it.
I ask, okay, so if you don't like fish, you at least have a dog, right?
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
And if they don't have a dog, I'm like, oh wow, how do you
Yeah.
deal with this?
No, and I like moose meat. So I mean, pure Alaska girl at heart, right there. Yeah,
I love moose meat. That's what we're
salmon.
having. Meatloaf for dinner. So where in Alaska haven't you been, and that you would love to go? Who would you go with? And what would you be drinking when you were sitting there?
Oh my gosh, those are such good questions. There are so many places really that I have not been. I have not been yet to Seward and the Sea Life Center, which is I know, and I have not been there. I have been to Barrow once with my daughter's basketball team, but I have not been to Nome. I would love to go to Nome. I would love to go with my family, and I would sip a Moscow Mule anywhere I went. It doesn't have to matter where, anywhere in the state I went. But I did get to go to Homer one time with my daughter's school group one time, and I just think the coast of Alaska is gorgeous, and I've only been to that one place, so I would love to go see more of the coastline. But yeah, there's a lot of places really that I have not been. Valdez is gorgeous, and we just started going to Valdez a lot when my daughter started playing basketball, and anywhere by the water, where water and mountains, I think is beautiful.
Yeah, I know. I think that's the thing. People, a lot of people are lucky enough that if they go on one of the cruises and they get to see, Southeast and the mountains that just jut right out of the ocean. But people are always surprised where we live that we don't have, water. And we're like, no, we're in the interior. I always sort of tell people it's kind of like living in North Dakota.
The plains, right? The plains field.
Yeah, because we're in a river valley. We can see Denali, but we're not in the mountains, So, yeah, that's one of the things that I want to go to the place, the McKenzie River, where all the bears are.
Oh yeah.
I really want to go there. And my husband's like, why? And I'm like, I just want to.
I just think though, anywhere you go, like even when we drive to Wasilla or Anchorage, you're driving through Denali or you drive to Valdez, every time I drive anywhere, and you can be there tons of times, every single time it's just so beautiful. Like you just stop and go, gosh, we're lucky to live in this state where it just looks like this. You have this amazing landscape. I think every time I go anywhere, I'm just amazed by this state.
I am too. And some people, it wears on them. And I travel to the lower 48 and I do fun things down there. But when I come back, I feel like I can breathe.
Yeah.
And it's just something about having the space, and being able to just look outside my door, like you say, drive from Fairbanks to Anchorage, and people laugh at me because, of course I have photo booth business down there too. And when I'm talking to people around the world, and I tell them, well, I have 2 operation centers and they're close to 400 miles apart. And they're like, oh, well, yeah, but you do stuff in between. I'm like, no, there's nothing in between.
The neighboring cities are a 6-hour drive. Neighboring cities, yes. Welcome to the place we live.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm like you. I love it. So, I am going to ask you to share with us, because Becky is one of those amazing people who she hasn't said much about it, and I told her when we started I didn't want it to define her, but she has actually beat cancer 3 times, not once, 3 times, and just again continues to have this amazing attitude about life and about her kids and about her career and her husband and her friends and her family. So, if you were going to give somebody sort of what you think is your secret sauce that just keeps you positive and keeps you centered and keeps you getting up every morning and because it's so easy to not want to get up when you're mad. Yeah, like you said, you were mad in junior high, and then you got mad again. So if you can just share with us, with, like I say, without the cancer being the thing that defines you, because it isn't, because we've been talking for almost 40 minutes and you barely said anything about it. So but I think it's important for people to hear that, because you're such a involved member of that volunteer group and the American Cancer Society, which is unfortunately going to become more and more part of my life because I've made that decision. So and you're one of my inspirations.
Thank you. Thank you. I have to say, I don't know if I was born with that positive, I'd say positive, or if it's the cancer that does it. But I have to say that I've met several kids that are diagnosed with cancer, and boy, they turn out to be these amazing people that I just want to talk to, because maybe there's something in it when you just have a little bit better of appreciation for life. And I have to, I mean, when I was diagnosed when I was 12, I didn't understand the ramifications of it until later. But I saw, Dr. Carroll, our local oncologist, all through junior high and high school. And I did have to come back to school and was called the cancer kid. They didn't know why I was gone for so long. And I know I didn't in junior high and high school appreciate what had happened and how the treatment had gotten me through it. But in 1988, when I was treated, it was all radiation therapy. And then we had, of course, go down. There was no facilities in Fairbanks. So we were treated, I was treated in Seattle. And in 1988, it was the best that they knew at the time was this radiation therapy. And the doctors did say, we don't know the long-term effects of this, but medicine is evolving. And for me, my story of my life really is called buying time. Like, I just always seem to buy a little bit more, a few more years. And with the treatment that has changed and progressed, and now we have so many diagnostic tools. I developed thyroid cancer because all that radiation was here to my chest. The tumor was in my chest for Hodgkin's. And then I developed breast cancer. But I was lucky enough to find both of those so early because we knew and we could watch out for things. And I've always been a big advocate of anything that felt strange in me or, anything like that. And I've been really sick. And then and every time you're really sick, and let's just say it's a cold or a flu, that like when you're having a hard day, you kind of go, oh, I took for granted the times that I just jumped out of a bed and I felt good and every muscle felt good and I could take a walk. And I don't want to take for granted that anymore. And I don't know if that's what it is, but when I see people who are suffering, boy, I am so grateful that I can get out of bed and now just have minor aches and pains, but I'm not faced with a end of life situation or a fight through treatment or all these things that people every single day get terrible bad news. And maybe I'm just waiting for that next call where you get terrible news. But it's not today. And today I feel good. And so I don't know where the appreciation came from, if it was from that, but I definitely have it. And I try to make sure that people around me understand, hey, today is a good day. I also though wrestle with people that have mental health issues, and where they can't oversee what today is a good day. Because I don't, I always feel like if you're feeling good, if you can get out of bed, boy, what's there to be sad about? But I know people have a lot of other issues that they're going through. But for me, every day is a good day that you're here and that you feel good and you can do something for someone else. I just always believe in paying it forward, and just trying to make the best of the day. Can you be somewhere? Can you be in someone's life today a positive thing? If someone comes to me with a problem at school, I'm like, let's figure that out. Let's solve your problem. And it's
Mhm.
just as easy as saying that, rather than saying, nope, I don't know, deal with it on your own or anything like that. It doesn't take much, right? But you can make somebody else's day go a lot better. And why not do that for each other?
Exactly. And maybe if we had a little bit more of that, it would be we wouldn't be feeling so sad sometimes. And I
Yeah.
think that's the thing. That's why with this, I just decided to do this because I was feeling like that. I mean, I'm in the event business and there's no events. And what
Yeah.
do you do? And I was just like, there's so many wonderful people out there that I can show people that, hey, this is a really amazing human being. And I
Yeah.
think sometimes we forget to look around us and see the amazing human beings that are right in our backyard. And that's what I wanted to do with this, is just to show people that, hey, don't that it's not the people that are on TV, it's not the people that have a bazillion friends on on Facebook, or the influencers or whatever. The real influencers are the people that are the kindergarten teachers,
Yeah.
and the people that are getting up every day and getting their kids to school and going to Sunday dinners at their parents, and working through relationships and working through illness and all those things. It's not. I just felt like, I feel like that's one of the things about COVID is, I'm hoping that as people get back together, they really value their neighbors.
The
You know,
everyday, just
yeah,
the everyday, just the
yeah.
good and everyday. Yeah. Just take away some obstacles. I mean, everybody's got obstacles. If we can just limit a few, boy, wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah. Yeah. And you have certainly done that through the things that you've done in our community, both with influencing our little lives
Mm.
and in your community. I mean, we were at the cancer walk this a couple weekends ago, and I think I heard two people come up that were former students of yours that came up to you, and it's just like, oh, look at that, they
Mhm.
remember. and
Yeah.
um and that has to just warm your heart all the way to your
Yeah.
toes.
Yeah, it does.
Is there heart in your toes?
Yeah. Yeah. There is. There's
Yeah,
heart
there is.
everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I
So
appreciate it, Coral, and I appreciate everything that you do for our community. And this spotlight, just bringing people to people, is such a good
yeah,
thing.
yeah. Well, I'm honored that you had the time to talk with me, and we will get this on our little Facebook page and send you the link so you can share it with all your friends, and hopefully we can get your story out there, and people need to hear it because you're amazing, my friend. Thank you so much.
Ah, right back at you.
Yeah. Okay.
See you
Have a
later.
good afternoon. Okay, I'll end this.